We wanted a name synonymous with St. Pete and something that was only St. Pete's. And we're handing out free beer while people were buying sandwiches. And they're like, go for it. Who cares? Set up shop. Tell people what you're doing. From a 5 to 10 gallon home brew system and trying to map that over to something on a much larger scale.
For the real crafty beer people listening, ingredients. Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete. I'm Ryan Bogdan, your host of this wonderful show and this amazing city. I want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Bogdan Homes here at Keller Williams St. Pete. So if you know anyone in the greater Tampa Bay area looking to buy, sell, invest, or you just have questions about the market, please find our contact information in the description below. And now I want to introduce my awesome guest. He has the pleasure of being on for the second time, but now alone. I got Nathan Stonecipher, the co-founder of Green Bench Brewing here in St. Petersburg, the first microbrewery in St. Pete back in 2013. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Love being here.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad. We were just having a great conversation. I wish that was all recorded ahead of time. But let's go.
We'll do it even better from here on
We'll do
out.
it even better. Yeah, we'll show up. We'll show up for the people. One, thanks for coming back.
Of course.
Awesome. You know, having all four of you on for the St. Pete Athletic Club, that was a real treat. But I'm used to being able to dive deep in with one particular person and hard when you have four people on. So I'm glad you came back.
Well, it was nice not having to talk very much.
Right, you're right.
You know?
It was
I
different.
got to take a break.
Yeah, you get to relax.
Got to take a little bit of a
I
break.
got to take a break because I got to ask one question and then listen and wait for 4 answers, and then it would come back. So it's true, a little bit of a different setup. So if you haven't seen that episode, guys, go check out what else they have going on at St. Pete Athletic Club like 2 or so episodes ago. But now Green Bench Brewing. One, you've been in St. Pete for a little bit.
Long time.
Am
I allowed to say my age?
That's up to you. If you want to
so
disclose.
43 years.
43 years.
So I've been in St. Petersburg all 43 years, minus a few for college. I was fortunate enough to be born here, and my parents are from here as well.
Second generation.
Went to the same high school they went to.
That's cool.
Which was a lot of fun. And I actually live right next door to that high school now. So it's a little weird. I've seen so many classes now, roll through there, and I can still hear the announcements in the morning when my windows are open. So sometimes it feels like I'm still in high school. I still hear the bell ring. Yeah. But now I'm the one yelling at the kids because they're, leaving trash in my front yard or parking too close to my car.
You're now that guy.
I'm the curmudgeon now.
So, like I was you once.
We've come full circle, I guess.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It's one thing about the show is that in my regular day life, outside of doing this, as I meet so many people who are not from here, and somehow Talkin St. Pete, which is great. I find all the locals, the real OGs.
Yeah.
And so
there's not many of us, I guess, comparatively. But it's, I think it's really cool to be from here. I mean, I love that we're attracting so many people. It's great. I mean, what a way to kind of change the dynamic and diversify what our city is. But it's still cool to meet those that were from here originally.
Absolutely. And 43 years, you've watched this place change dramatically.
Yeah, completely. Very different.
Very different from when you were listening to the bell from the desk at school.
Yeah, I still remember as a kid going on a tour of the Vinoy when it was shut down, boarded up, windows broken. It was kind of like a ghost tour thing, back in the day. My parents, my uncles, and my brothers, so just a very different time. Beach Drive was mostly old homes or shuttered businesses, and there wasn't much going on.
And now it's thriving.
Yeah. And we have so many people, who have helped with that within our community, just incrementally building to what we have now. And obviously we have a lot further we can take it. There's so much opportunity here still. But it really felt like it started changing in the late 90s. Obviously, when the Vinoy came back online, that was a huge piece. Then, the Rays actually having a professional baseball team helped to flip the script a little bit. And then, little things, little by little, kept happening that made this a great place to live and want to live. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, now it's off the charts, right? In terms of the amount of people wanting to be here. But let's go back to those early days of, okay, you're out of high school, you're at college. In that time, I mean, what's your background that leads to you becoming a co-founder in one of the first microbreweries? Like, were you always have an interest in beer? Was it business? Like, how did that
Yeah,
come to?
so I think I knew early on that I wanted to focus on some sort of business career. I wasn't sure, what that would be or where that would take me. And actually the first year after I graduated high school, I actually went to St. Pete College, which was an amazing experience. I went kicking and screaming at first because I wanted to be away at university with all my friends, but decided to stay for a year, go to night school, and save up money. So I was working full time at a financial firm, William R. Huff and Company, which used to be huge group here in downtown St. Petersburg. The Huff family has done so much for this area, and really cut my teeth there, earned a little extra cash, and prepared me to go to the University of Florida, where I majored in finance. I chose that just because I thought it would be an easier path to find a job once I graduated, and had a great experience there, and thought I was going to move somewhere else. When I left St. Pete, still wasn't a ton going on here. And so I think I envisioned maybe being in the Charlotte area where there's a lot of kind of the southern banking capital, and didn't get a job. Sent resumes out, had some interviews, didn't get a job anywhere.
Crickets.
And I was lucky enough to have a job offer from Raymond James. And so it was, okay,
Full
coming
circle.
back to St. Pete. Here we go. But I worked there for a few years and then went to more of a startup, at that time, private equity fund here in the area called Directed Capital Resources. They're actually still here and thriving. Their office is just a couple blocks away, and had an amazing experience with that team. Very small group when I first started, much larger now. And when I was there, as much as I loved the job, I wanted to do something that would give me a little more roots here in St. Petersburg. I was traveling a lot. We were looking at a lot of different businesses in a lot of different areas throughout the United States. But I wanted to do something here that would help maybe add to the landscape of what was going on. And I wanted to try my hand at, the entrepreneurial thing. And I was into beer. I was into craft beer. I was brewing some beer in the garage, which thank goodness we don't serve any of that at Green Bench. I was having fun with it, and it was something that as I traveled, I saw these breweries in other places, and we just didn't have that here yet. So it looked like
So were you the seed of thought, because you have partners in this?
I do. So that's a long story that I'll make short. I have two great partners, Stephen Duffy and Chris Johnson. Chris was on his own kind of brewing path at this point in time. We just hadn't crossed paths yet.
Okay.
Steve I knew from high school, so I'd known him a long time.
Wow, that's cool.
And I started drafting this business plan, but realized very quickly that I was going to need help, and I was not going to be able to do this alone. And I did not have the skill set to do this alone, regardless. So it made sense that we needed somebody with Steve's background, which is building construction management, somebody who could really manage the operational side, the equipment side, the build out of everything we needed to do. And then obviously we needed the leader, the head of the whole brewing side, which ended up being Chris. And, that really happened. It was kind of providential, I'll say, how that all came together. But we ended up finally meeting with Chris after trying to put this crazy business together for probably over a year. Chris had been working to start his own brewery. Locally, and that kind of fell apart a little bit. So he was also searching for the next project. And we met with him, and it was kind of love at first sight. We sat down for 3 or 4 hours at Old Northeast Tavern. This had to be back in 2010 or probably 2011.
Okay.
And we could tell pretty early on that this was going to be a good fit. And what we loved about Chris is he's obsessive. He always wants to learn more. His mind is like a sponge, and he's one of the most creative people I've ever met. And that's the perfect person that you want to lead a brewing program and make sure, if we were going to leave our full-time jobs, I didn't want to just make the same thing that everybody else was making. We wanted to do something different. We wanted it to be special. We wanted to experiment and try new things. And we knew he was going to do that. And so Chris has been a phenomenal partner, throughout this entire business, and couldn't be more happy. Yeah.
There's a great lesson in that story in identifying strengths and weaknesses within yourself, and realizing, that you can go further with partnership. I think, just it's cliche and to think that so many people try to just do it on their own, and the magic can happen, to the point Chris tried to do it. Yep. Right. And then you brought together, and Steve, and then together. Yeah. 3 musketeers.
That's right.
The 3 breweteers.
And we all, from early on, we all trusted each other to kind of do what we were there to do. So there was very little as far as micromanaging of, it wasn't me saying, Chris, why are we making that kind of beer? We trust him to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why we're going in this direction. I'm not telling Steve how he needs to set up equipment or get machinery to operate. You know what I mean?
You're staying out of each other's way.
We're staying out of each other's way and letting each other work and do what we're good at.
So this is 2011. 2 years to put the business together?
Yeah, just about. We had to go raise money and then fill in the gaps with an SBA loan. And then really what took the longest was finding the right property. We were, you got to think this is just a few years after the kind of the real estate crash that we had, 2008, 7, 8, 9. And so it was an interesting market here. There was plenty of things available. It was harder to get the right deal done. We were going to lease our space, and obviously we needed a lot of room to do what we were going to do. And we had a pretty particular vision about, we wanted outdoor space for a beer garden. We needed a certain amount of square footage to actually do the manufacturing side. And we knew we may end up in a warehouse district, which was fine, but it would be nice, and we preferred to be somewhere that maybe was going to be more walkable into the near future. And we went down the road with probably 4 or 5 different owners of buildings trying to work out a lease deal, because really what we needed, without getting too far into the weeds, was a few months of freeway to run, because we were going to be investing over $1 million in a building, and this construction was going to be pretty extensive.
Yeah, you're like, so some free rent.
We needed a little free rent to get this done, or at least reduced rent until we got open. And we also didn't know how long it was going to take for the city to change some zoning laws that we needed done for
so you had a whole lot
a brewery operation. So there's a lot of variables and moving pieces that we didn't have all the answers to. But we ended up at our current location. That building wasn't even for lease. Somebody in the community came to us who owned a lot in the Edge district, and said, "Hey, this building isn't for lease, but I know the owner, and he may be willing to do."
What was their previous?
He was using it for storage.
Oh.
So it was, he had a vacant lot on one side, a vacant lot on the other side, and then the main warehouse where our brewery is currently was being used mostly for storage. So we went and just knocked on the door one day.
Wow.
And got a hold of the owner and presented him with some pictures and a pitch deck and said, "This is what we want to do here." And
so you knew it was the right property prior to even knocking on the door, just from looking at it outside?
We went and looked at it and took some measurements from online and put together a general layout of how we thought it could work. And it fit the mold for us, because we needed some outdoor space for equipment, and we also needed outdoor space for a beer garden. This had all those things. And we were pretty confident that within a 10-year window, the Edge District would be something that people would want to come and see, and it would be directly, back then that was considered outside of downtown core. So to a lot of people, this was way far away from downtown, which we thought was kind of funny. It's like 4 blocks away. But we saw it, and it ended up happening way faster than we ever imagined. I thought it was going to take 10 years for the Edge to kind of become something substantial. And I mean, within 3 or 4 years, the edge was popping. It still is.
Well, it's great insight from your part of identifying that, because you were early. And there was some risk in that. Because
there's a lot of vacant buildings there at the time. Bodega opened almost the exact same time we did, a few months before we did. We were under construction when they opened. John Warren had a restaurant called Savannah's, and then it was Ricky P's, where Sourdough Co. is currently. Ferg's, of course, anchor of that neighborhood forever. So Ferg's was there and operating. And then Leslie Curran had her store where Enigma currently is. And so there were a few things happening there, but not a lot.
Not like there is now.
Not like there is now. And
very different.
But it had the bones. You know, you could sense that this place could be really, really cool and could turn into something that would, you know, create a draw for a lot of different people.
Well, it's always interesting to sit and think, and chat with the visionary, right? Because you need that to see the future. And then to your point, you're like, okay, we're going to put this, and we might be 10 years early.
Yeah.
But you saw that and you took the risk and you were willing to go for it, and you had a vision to what it could become, and you were right.
Yeah, luckily we were right.
And you became another piece that added to that. Because
right, you know, right after we opened, you know, Pete Vadia from the Red Mesa Group, who I went to high school with, Pete Jr., I had a conversation with him and said, hey, we're looking at the building next to you to possibly do this new concept Mercado. You know, we like the fact that you all are going to be right next door, hopefully drawing a crowd. What do you think? And I was like, awesome, bring it. And, you know, Red Mesa had the vision to invest early in that neighborhood. And, you know, Intermezzo opened a few years later, you know, and it just snowballed from there. Enigma's been there forever now. You know, you have these kind of landmark pieces that have been in this neighborhood for 10 years now that really help to create a thriving community.
How did you guys land with the name Green Bench Brewing? I know where the Green Bench come from, but was that the first name, or was there a rendition of names?
Close to. We talked, so when the three of us finally got together as a team, we were brewing beer in, at that time, Steve's backyard. And that's usually where we would have our business meetings as we were coming up with this plan. And we had many conversations there, waiting for the waiting for the brewing process to happen as you know, wort is boiling to discuss these things. And Green Bench was one of the, we wanted a name synonymous with St. Pete and something that was only St. Pete's, but we didn't necessarily want it to be just whatever, you know, a plain name. We wanted something a little deeper. And so Green Bench was intriguing to us because while it was a symbol of the city meant for hospitality, originally it was still in a city during segregation, and part of our community wasn't welcome on those green benches. So we thought this would give us a really cool story to tell, to talk about St. Pete's history, frankly, to be open with what that is, but also kind of take back ownership of what those benches were supposed to represent and say, we are a city open to everyone. We are a city of hospitality. This is why people want to come here. And we can do that with our brewery, with our beer, with our tap room. And we just thought it all worked so well together. And so that's what we went with. And to us, that the bench is that symbol to bring our community together. And we hope it is something that people can sit on and have tough conversations or just meet with family and friends. And that's what we wanted our space to kind of emulate and be about.
It's really cool. It's really cool. And I can tell you've been thoughtful along the way, very intentional.
Yeah, we try to be with everything, right?
And so when did you, this is like maybe a fun question. When was the moment when you realized that you guys are now a cornerstone in the Edge District? I mean, because like now everyone, and this is hats off and a compliment, everyone knows Green Bench.
Thank you.
Everyone, there's people know where it's at. They know the beer. There's been events there. I mean, you guys are well involved in the community, but there's still, and I'm guessing maybe not, but when you guys first opened the doors, there's still that shakiness of we're new in town.
Sure. There was a lot of nerves early on. I remember those days well. And For the first few months, the beer's not as great as we want it to be because this is a brand new brewing system that we haven't experimented on all that much. And, you're taking recipes from a 5 to 10 gallon home brew system and trying to map that over to something on a much larger scale. And, we weren't sure how the public was going to perceive us. Are people going to walk through the doors? But, as part of our vision, we wanted to be one of those key places that, if family's in town for a holiday, Green Bench is one of the places you go as a thing to do. You go to the Dali Museum, you go to the pier, you go to Green Bench. We wanted to be in that conversation. And I don't remember the exact year, but it did. I was sitting out in the beer garden during Thanksgiving week one year, 4 or 5 years in, and talking to some people and seeing all the families, from kids to grandparents. And I was like, in my mind, it's like, this has become that place. This is where people are bringing people together. Mm-hmm. This is where people are coming to have fun for a few hours. And it finally felt like, we had crossed that threshold, and this is what the space has become. So it was a really, really cool feeling.
I can imagine. I love that the moment, that Thanksgiving weekend that happened, because as a visionary, just to see it all come together and not only see it, but feel it. Sure. That was a moment of reflection for you. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and something we still enjoy today. There's a lot of frustrations too, but we get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing that and seeing people use our space in different ways, from nonprofits to different clubs, to families gathering like we were just talking about. It's special for us to see, people come for different reasons and hopefully get enjoyment out of where they're at.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the distribution side, because now you can find your beer all around St. Pete, out at the beaches. We were talking about that. How quickly did that come online? What's that process like? Because that's a whole nother. It's one thing to be a microbrewery and you serve beer on tap in house, and now you're distributing beer around the city.
Yeah, it's a whole different model, and we actually started that pretty early on. I think if we could go back and do it differently, we would have focused more in-house first and then rolled out distribution. Distribution is almost a second business in and of itself. And, we have to go through our distribution partners for different territories of Florida. Each of those partners is a different relationship, and they have their own rules about how they want things done. So it becomes a bit complex logistically to make sure we're kind of checking all the boxes with everybody and doing things the right way. Mm-hmm. The game has changed a lot in the last 11 years since we've been open. It's actually hard sometimes for new startup breweries to even find distributors who are willing to carry their product because they have enough craft brands in their portfolio. So we were lucky looking back, because the distributors were looking for craft brands. There weren't many of them in the state of Florida yet. Cigar City kind of paved the way for us here locally, but it wasn't hard for us to find a distribution partner. And it's a different game. The margins are a lot more slim, and it's really, you have to focus on more volume and distribution, and that can take a while to get there as well. We never wanted to outgrow our abilities, so from day one, it was our mindset to slowly and kind of deliberately grow this brand and the distribution side, so that we could hopefully always maintain a standard of consistency, quality, not jump from 1,000 barrels of beer to 10,000 barrels of beer and then not know how to manage that, but grow with what we were somewhat comfortable with. And I think that served us well. This past year has been a hard year for past few years have been hard for a lot of local brands. And we continue to grow volume in the marketplace, which is fantastic. There's not a ton of breweries who are doing that right now.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, Chris, first and foremost, because I think he and our production team make a fantastic product. But I think people trust our brand, and I think that just comes with time. They know the passion and the love and the seriousness with which we make and package our product. They know that if beer's gotten more expensive, so you're spending $11.99 for a 6-pack now at Publix, and that'll probably go up again. So it's, it's not as easy of a decision of what you're going to buy when you're at the store and looking at the shelf. And so you need to trust the brand to know that your money's not being wasted.
Absolutely.
And I think we have, for the most part, gained the trust of our customers throughout the state of Florida. And I think they sense a bit of authenticity with us. We've never said or done anything, that's not authentic. Like, we're pretty true to who we are, and we're pretty transparent with people. And I think you can tell, our social media is authentic. We have such a great team that puts all these things together, and we just are who we are. I think people sense that. People can pick up on fake.
Well, it's you're authentic to the brand of St. Pete,
right?
Which is authentic.
I mean, Steve Duffy was born and raised here. Chris moved here when he was a kid. We're all from the area, and this community is very important to us. And we put a lot of time and effort into, what do we represent for our city of St. Petersburg, and how can we be better partners for people who live here?
I like to think better partners for people who live here, and you're also, shaping the city. And whether do you feel that? Do you recognize that? I mean, the influence, because one thing I talk about a lot on the show is the communities.
Sure. And
how many communities come through and host events at your place, use you as a staple, as a venue, drink your beer, hang out, so that you're a contributing partner to many communities, and the communities are what makes St. Pete, an authentic place.
Absolutely. It's, for us, that's always kind of been at the core of what we want to do. I think it's hard for us to say, we're this great asset to the community.
Of course, because you're humble, and it's fine. But I can say it.
It is what we strive for. And, from day one, it's been about allowing people to use our space, hopefully donating our product to events and nonprofits who can benefit from using that for an event, or partnering up. Like, our partnership with St. Pete Run Fest the past few years has been great, something that we think has really turned into a great St. Petersburg community event. We've partnered with American Stage the last 6 or 7 years in a row for American Stage in the Park, for that month run of the show every year, and have our beer there and make a collaboration beer in partnership with them based on, what play they're doing that year. So there's a lot of different ways we try to stay involved and show that we care. But it's, what's great about St. Petersburg is that we have so many groups that are worthwhile investing time and money in. It's not like we're limited to these are the 5 groups that do a lot for this area. There are hundreds. And so it's really, pick and choose who you want to help, and how deeply you want to dive in to do that. And that makes it great. It makes it easy. The hardest part is deciding. We can't help everyone all the time. The hardest part is deciding who to partner with.
Yeah, it's true. I'm sitting here smiling as you're saying all that, because I'm just thinking of how, when you blend that all together, and how it is, to dissect and explain the city. You just have to experience it, and to come to an event at Green Bench or wherever and be part of these communities. One thing I love talking about on the show, and you guys are big contributors to this, and I have a story to share of how, is the entrepreneur small business community, just up and down Central and St. Pete and downtown in general, and beyond. How has, you've helped shape that, and I have a story to share. I don't know if you know this story. I'm sure you do, but the one that I'm thinking about, helping another brewery that opened. But before that, in 2013, when you guys opened, what was the community like in terms of small businesses? Because Central didn't look the way it does now.
No, yeah, it didn't at all. And it was different in many ways, but at the same time, there was still this great connection between small business owners, managers, operators, people who were kind of stepping outside the box and trying new things. There was a lot of support. There still is, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot of support between businesses. My wife, Sarah, owns a business on Central Avenue. Misread Outfitters. That 600 block was something that was vacant and boarded up for many years before that got turned on. I think she was the first business that opened there as all those were starting to come back online back in 2009, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So you had, that section start getting up and running, and all these things on Central started getting turned on, plugged in, and people were taking risks to do something cool. And of course, there's been many variations and it's evolved over time, but I don't know, because I haven't lived anywhere else for long enough, how all the other communities throughout the U.S. are, but at least in St. Petersburg, small businesses are really supportive of each other. And if they're not trying to get people into their door, they're trying to get people to the other businesses around them or to some of their favorite businesses in the area, and really trying to hype what everyone's doing. I mean, when Debbie and George opened Bodega a couple months before Green Bench opened, they were so helpful. Our conversations were so frank and open and real. I mean, we took some of our homebrew beer over to their parking lot one day and we're handing out free beer while people were buying sandwiches. And they're like, go for it. Who cares? Set up shop, tell people what you're doing, and it's little things like that that really make this place special.
It really does. And so friends with Jonathan and Angie, Golden Isles.
Yeah.
And
they're great.
And they share a story of how Green Bench helped them open. They weren't quite ready when they wanted to. They were doing a little party, and you guys rolled a keg over there and like helped them out, to do their thing. And I think that's just really special, because I know that there's other cities that be like, that's my competitor. There's no way I'm gonna even talk to them or show up at their opening.
There's so many of these small story people that helped us too, right? I mean, even so, Cigar City, who, we might have been a competitor to them. That Joey Redner allowed us to come over. We took some of the city members over there to see their operation as we were trying to change the zoning laws. And, we were signing off on construction documents at their place while we were looking at some things and how they set it up, at their place. And they welcomed us with open arms to do that. And I don't think there's a week that goes by where either Chris, myself, or Steve are not helping or taking a phone call or talking to another business owner and trying to at least, either they're giving us information that's useful or we're trying to give them information that we've learned over their 11 years of being in operation to help each other out. I mean, the communication is just always going on, and I hope it stays that way. And the brewing industry is very unique in and of itself, because so many of the breweries are pretty open and helpful for other breweries. It's a very tight-knit community, and one in which people share information relatively freely to other brewery owners and operators. And I know not every segment of business is like that. And so we're very grateful to be, in this crazy group of craft breweries, because they are very helpful and we all try to work together and help each other out. And it's not an easy business to be in. So we need that support. And sometimes we just need somebody to say, you know what? I feel your pain. We're going through the exact same thing, and we're trying to figure it out just like you are.
It's special. It's really important to hang around like-minded people, all striving to do the same thing, but can bring different perspectives from different areas and viewpoints, especially when there is, in a heavily regulated industry like you are. Yeah. And how do you navigate those waters? But just hats off to you guys being a contributing member to the openness and giving back to the community, because that does keep St. Pete.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of regulation, I mean, what is that like? I mean, I know nothing about selling beer. What is some of the red tape that you face? You mentioned you've gone to Tallahassee to try to change some of the regulation. I mean, as a brewery owner, what are you facing with? What are your challenges?
That's a massive conversation. We'll keep it short.
Yeah.
But at its base, there's federal laws and there's state laws. There's federal excise taxes and there's state excise taxes on this beautifully crafted malted beverage that we create. And so, just in and of itself, the reporting of that and making sure we're in good standing and we're paying our taxes on time is extremely important. But to get the beer to market, if it's not sold on site, yes, we have to go through distributors here in the state of Florida, which, all of our partners are very different, as we talked about. They all want to sell our beer, which is great, but sometimes getting on the same page can be difficult. We have perhaps different goals than they have. And it's hard for distributors. They're working with this vast portfolio of many different products. Some of them have very big brands. A lot of our distributors are Anheuser-Busch distributors. So you can imagine that Budweiser and Bud Light is slightly more important than what we're doing. That makes up 95% of what they do. So we understand that. We're realists. At the same time, there are some laws in Florida that make it a bit limiting for us, aside from just having to go through a distributor instead of selling beer on our own. It's not easy for breweries of our size, any brewery, to get out of a distribution contract. So the reason that's difficult for us sometimes is we don't really have any leverage in the conversation. Any other business owner could say, you know what, you're not doing what you said you were going to do. We're going to use a competitor, and hopefully they operate and perform better for us. If a distributor is not doing what they said they were going to do for us, we don't really have any other option.
Meaning, okay, so why? So is it by contract? But so by law, you can't
State
fire
statute,
you can't fire your distributor.
State statute and contract. We would have to come to an agreement with the distributor to get released from that distribution contract.
So it's contract that's holding you,
or pay our way out. We buy ourselves out somehow. So all of our partners right now, we have a great working relationship with, but there have been times in the past where things weren't going how they were supposed to go, and we just didn't have an option to get out of that. It is what it is, and you can make the call and send as many emails as you want. But there's no one holding anyone's feet to the fire to make, to get something to change.
Distributor. I mean, I'm glad that you have a great relationship. I'm just saying a scenario to where things aren't, but they're so big and they're like, well, tough.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out to our advantage. The first distributor we started out with actually sold their portfolio to many different distributors throughout the state, and we were part of that sale of brands that had to go. We went from one distributor to like 14 in a day, which logistically is very difficult for a small group of ours to manage. But, we didn't have a say in that sale, but it really worked out for us because, one of the partners that picked us up, one of the distributors is Great Bay, who's our distributor here locally. And what they've been able to do in growing our brand and working with us here locally has been unbelievable. And it would have taken us 5 times as long to get there with this other group. So in that case, it worked out really well.
Yeah, the right partnership.
And Great Bay is a massive community supporter here too. They built that really nice facility right off the interstate near the incinerator. It's a huge distribution facility, and so they're close by, and they do so much for this area. They've been here forever, longer than we have. So we're lucky to be with them.
So on that side, how many, is it barrels of beer? Is that how we're measuring it?
Yeah.
How many barrels per month come out of Green Bench? Is that a way to measure it? I don't know what I don't know the lingo. Nathan, help me out.
If you mean just is produced there.
Yeah. How much beer are you pumping out?
So this past year, we'll do about 6,000 barrels of beer on site.
Wow.
And we actually make.
Do we have that in gallons?
Well, that's going to be a little more difficult, but a barrel of beer is 31 gallons.
31 gallons, 6,000 times.
So
31.
a keg is 15 and a half gallons. So 2 large kegs equals 1 barrel.
What do we got?
So
6,000 186,000 gallons of beer.
More?
Yeah. Okay, that was 6,000 times 31.
Let's see. So 31. Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay.
186,000 gallons. That's a lot of beer.
Yeah. The math doesn't seem right to me. But I got the lights in my face.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're missing a zero. That's crazy. That's a lot.
It's and we also Florida Avenue Brew Bus has a relatively new manufacturing facility just north of Tampa. And so we're actually brewing beer there.
Oh, wow.
To help subsidize some of our Sunshine City production right now because we're out of room.
So for the real crafty beer people listening, ingredients, that's an important part of this whole process.
Yeah.
Where are you guys sourcing ingredients? What's that look like? And maybe that's I know that's an art form from Chris. Is that, I mean, I'm sure I know you're intentional because you're intentional about everything. So,
sure.
Is that ingredients coming from Florida? Like, what's that process like? Is that where your cost is really going up?
Yeah, raw material costs have gone way up over the past few years, really since about a year after COVID, like it has for everyone. Grain malted barley, there's a few main suppliers of that in the United States. We buy quite a bit of malted barley that's European for some of our pilsners and lagers we do. Chris is very intentional about having the right ingredients for the right beer, even down to our water content, stripping our water down, filtering it, and then adding back whatever mineral content we need for it to be true to form of how that beer was originally made. Most of our hops come from the Pacific Northwest. And Chris goes out there once a year, usually with one of our brewers, for hop selection. You can actually see, touch, smell, and kind of choose which batch of hops that you want.
That's cool.
For the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, on our cider side, which we haven't even talked about, we have an amazing cider brewer, Brian, who took an ownership position in the brewery many years ago as well. And I think he makes the best ciders, if not in the Southeast U.S., but on the East Coast. He's doing something really special with our cider production. But he sources a vast majority of our juice from an orchard in Williamson, New York. And I've actually been up there with him to walk the orchard, taste the apples that were being harvested that year. He then works with the orchardist to decide how much of which type of apple he wants to make cider out of in the next year, and they will juice it for us and then send it down in massive totes, which we then process throughout the year and make cider out of. So it is a very intentional process.
No, but it's really cool. It has to be cool to be on the farm, picking out these ingredients, smelling them, touching them,
for sure,
tasting them raw, and then watching what they come to be.
And there's a lot of different groups working on trying to find ways to grow more things here in Florida that can be used in the brewing process. But truthfully, it's a hard climate to grow a lot of these products that we use in beer or cider in the state of Florida. But they're working on some hop varieties that may work one day. But
we got to go where things grow well.
Exactly.
I mean, it's hot unless you're using oranges, right?
It's hot and there's a lot of bugs and there's a lot of fungus and mildew and there's multiple issues to get over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's and cider. Cider's been, I feel like, in the last I don't know, when did cider come on the map for you guys?
So it was our intention for Green Bench was always to do things that we knew we could execute on a very high level. And so cider wasn't part of the conversation. Chris is not a cider brewer. And, Brian was here locally. Chris has known him for a long time. And Brian actually approached us and said, really like what you all are doing. I understand the vision. I think I could add something here with my cider program. And it was a very short conversation for us. It was absolutely, let's see what we can do. If you're the one making the cider, we know the quality of your product. We would love for that to be a part of Green Bench. So that was just a couple years after we opened. And he's since grown that program significantly, takes up a whole kind of quarter of our cellar, in Webb City cellar, the whole back kind of quarter of that building is dedicated to cider production, which much larger fermentation tanks than we used to have over there. So he's done a phenomenal job with that.
That's cool. I think in having diversity of cider is important. I do enjoy ciders myself. So that's cool.
Some of my favorite days at Green Bench is when Brian he'll do a cider tasting in class for the employees. And I love sitting in on those because he usually brings cider bottles from all over the world, whether it's Spanish cider or from the UK or wherever. And so I learn a lot. I don't know as much about cider as I do about beer. So it's always an educational experience. And, these are the classes that you want to sit in on when you're tasting products, right? That's not a bad way to spend a couple hours.
No, and then hear from the expert and their passion for it, right? Exactly. Anyone who's passionate about anything, it's great to learn from them because they're in the trenches and hours of mastering their craft.
Right.
As just an entrepreneur and owner for you guys, I mean, it's easy to sit here and talk about the things that you said yes to. But keeping brand on point, branding was a conversation I had yesterday with Philip Ingram, Lonnie's and Trips, and talking about the importance of brand. And he had his, things that he said no to in being in a restaurant owner, nothing open past 11, not working certain holidays, things like that. Because this is my year of saying no. I said yes.
Good luck.
I said yes to so many things in 24. And so just for you as an operator, what are things that where you're like, that's a no? And I know it's an abstract, hard conversation, but I think as owners, that's not a conversation we have enough, right?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I'll say this. It's easier for us to say no now because we have established ourselves a little bit. The community knows us. We used to be afraid of bad publicity, bad press, or being perceived as a group that isn't willing to do things. It's a little easier for us now because we've gotten the bad publicity, we've gotten bad press. We know that we just have to keep operating and be true to ourselves, and all that kind of shakes out in the wash. And we know that we have a big group of supporters who I think trust who we are and what we do, and more importantly, why we do it. But there are things we say no to. Even product mix. We haven't stepped out yet and, done an RTD, for instance.
What's that?
Ready to drink, like the White Claw. Or,
got it.
Which is a great product and a great market to be in. But we're going to, for now, we want to stay focused to beer and cider. And that was actually a hard decision to say, no, we're going to stay in our lane for now. This is what we do, and we're going to try to execute on this well. I think a lot of it comes down to some personal decisions too of the leaders at Green Bench. I know a couple years ago I took email notifications off my phone, and just if I'm in front of my computer, I'm going to go through emails. If I'm not, you're going to have to wait.
Right. It's an email. It can wait.
It's an email. If it's a real emergency, people know how to get a hold of me. But just to try to separate myself a little bit from the 24-hour work cycle that we've all kind of gotten accustomed to.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be able to step away.
Quality of life.
Yeah. And I think we never really discussed this as a group, but I think Chris and I and Steve too, I don't know, probably right before COVID started to not feel like we had to come into the brewery every weekend. In fact, I'm rarely there on the weekends now, which is great. And you can only do that if you have a team around you that you can trust to get things done and do it the right way. But for the first few years, it felt like a necessity to be there all the time. And 7 days a week gets old pretty quickly.
Burnout's a real thing.
We are very grateful to we have 31 employees now, and we have a great team, and we're so grateful to have a group that you can trust to do things the right way while you're not there, and hopefully give people a good experience, while they're trying to have a good time at Green Bench.
Love that.
So we're lucky to be in that position right now.
Yeah, it's a great spot, and it's a tribute to a lot of long hours and weeks and everything else.
Yeah, and we try to be pretty transparent with our staff and telling them that, look, before Green Bench, myself, Chris, and Steve really had no business management experience. And between the three of us, we had very little hospitality experience. So we're learning with you. We're learning things. We don't have all the right answers all the time. We are going to make mistakes. We have a pretty open door policy there, so people can be pretty frank in giving us constructive criticism. But we have never pretended like we understand the exact perfect way to run this business all the time, whether it's on the manufacturing side, the hospitality side, or the sales team side, which is out in the marketplace selling beer. We're learning this as we go. And so we need a little bit of grace, but we're willing to make changes if something doesn't work.
Well, yeah, to show adaptability and just to be humble enough to say that allows, for the culture within your team to be able to do that. So
sure.
I'm sure that I know has attributed to your success, because I'm sure you've learned 30 plus employees, you've learned something from them.
Absolutely. Oh, that's probably where we've learned the most. And I always tell people it's 30 something employees, and, very different too. Like, everyone's very different. Everyone has very different talents, and, bartenders are different from manufacturing, crew is different from sales team, and everyone is motivated and operates on a slightly different level. And so trying to be a good leader, or at least be a good communicator and understand where everyone's coming from, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's one thing that I wish I had spent more time with at business school was, managing people.
Leadership.
At least with a finance degree, there wasn't a ton of focus on that.
Yeah. No, and
I wish I could have had more.
Well, you've created your own master's program at Green Bench, and having to learn in the field on the spot.
Maybe they'll give me an MBA.
Right, yeah. You can make your own certification, Green Bench leadership. Yeah, that's awesome. And so with that, talking about growth and going through your people and learning things, what does the future of Green Bench hold?
That's a great question, and something we're always talking about. We're lucky to be in a position where we didn't get too big too fast, and so we're still able to make some steering changes as the market changes, as St. Petersburg changes, as the consumer changes. We haven't painted ourselves into a corner too much with one specific thing. There's going to be definitely some additional retail coming online. We would love to have 2 or 3 new retail concepts that are, Green Bench in name, or brought to you by Green Bench Brewing Company, that either plants us more directly in different neighborhoods throughout our city, or shows a different side of us and what we can do. Similar to, Webb City Cellar has a real focus on our barrel-aged beer program, and our cider, right? Whereas the main tap room has our IPAs and lagers and pilsners and that sort of thing. So kind of shows off a different side of Green Bench. I think we can do that with some other retail concepts, but we can also do some retail concepts that just, hey, we're closer to where you live now. Here's what we do. Here's a little bit of the vibe from downtown that we can bring to you, and hopefully plant ourselves in different areas. It's something that we're always looking for. In fact, we're looking at a few different places right now and trying to find the right spot at the right time, and really a great location to make that happen. And then it's fun projects like St. Pete Athletic that, we talked about it a few months ago, but that was not something that we had planned. But Ruben and Graham had this great idea, and Green Bench has always wanted a little bit of a foothold on the Pinellas Trail. And, it was the right group of people, it was the right concept, and it was the right fit for us. And being able to creatively do something a bit different, this is a project that's not just bar or brewery related. This is something that's a bit outside of the box for us to think through and work on. And it's been a ton of fun. I mean, we just got our permits last week to start construction. Good. And so, seeing this thing continue to move forward and bring a new brand to life has been creatively, very inspiring and fulfilling.
And new partnerships.
Right. We've always had a good relationship with Intermezzo, and so it's great working with that group again, and Jared, and and Ruben and Graham are fantastic, St. Pete guys that are, in this pickleball world that I don't know much about, but I'm learning quickly about it.
Yeah.
So things like that are neat. And I think what's fun right now is the longer you've been here and the longer you've had a business, right? You're developing relationships as you go. And it becomes less a question of, what's the next thing that we're doing? And sometimes it's more of a question of who do we want to work with? Who do we trust? This could be really fun to partner up with this group and do something here. Mm-hmm. And so being able to look at things more through that lens has been exciting.
I can imagine, because there's so many great people here, and when you partner with the right people, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
Great collaboration is just fun.
And it's, team is always hard as far as ownership team or management team. And we're very fortunate that, the Green Bench team has been together and we're still talking to each other 11 years later.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you dip your toe into a new team, you're like, man, I hope it goes like that, or man, I hope it doesn't go like this. And so it's important to know and trust who you're working with, and you hope that it's the right personality fit where everybody can, be there next to each other, helping each other for years and years and years.
Well, the cool thing with you is now, since you've had, not only one, but two other partners, from the start, you kind of understand the energy and vibe of what creates that good team.
For
and
sure.
I'm sure a red flag will go up immediately if you don't feel that.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it in the last podcast for St. Pete Athletic, but it was actually very beneficial when Ruben, Graham, Jarrett, and myself took a road trip for a week.
I think that's the coolest thing that you guys
facilities. Did. I was like, if we don't know, if the red flags haven't come up through this, then I think we're doing okay. So that was a good learning experience.
I can imagine. That's honestly a road trip with anybody will tell you a lot really, really quickly.
Yeah.
That should be just a mandatory test.
For sure.
Oh man, what a good time. And so, with your roots here in St. Pete, I love to ask all the guests. I know this is going to be a hard question, but Nathan, it's your birthday. When is your birthday?
December 2nd.
Okay. Well, happy belated.
Thanks.
It's your birthday. We're in St. Pete. You have to stay in St. Pete.
Oh man.
Where are we going to eat?
Wow, that's a really hard question.
And let's say we can go somewhere for appetizers, we can go somewhere for main course, and then dessert.
Well, however I answer, there's going to be a ton of people that are mad at me.
It's bound to happen, and we're sorry, but your birthday only comes one. You only have such a big stomach, and it only happens one day a year.
If I was, so here's the ideal birthday, right?
Mm-hmm.
I live in Kenwood, so I would walk to Barbooni and then eat some tin fish there, and then eat at Baba, right next door.
Uh-huh.
Debbie and George do such a great job with that. We're fortunate to have so many good restaurants in that neighborhood now, between Wild Child and Trophy, and it's become a great spot. Now what I'd like to do on my birthday is kind of watch sports by myself, so I don't have to talk to anyone.
Okay, so
if I was doing that, I would go to the galley and grab a bite and watch something there.
Okay.
And if I want to be surrounded by a ton of people, I'd go to Ferg's and watch sports. But different vibe for whatever you're feeling on that day.
Okay. That's good. That's a fair answer.
Yeah.
I know it's a hard one.
I covered a few different bases.
You covered them. You covered them. Yeah, I know. And for those that are super ingrained in the community, it's funny because they go, "Oh, you can't do that to me."
Yeah, it's an unfair question.
It is an unfair question, and especially when there's so many great spots.
Yeah, and it's, again, growing up here, I was thinking the other day, there's some spots that we miss out on now too. The old Coney Island on MLK, shut down after COVID. I really miss going. My dad used to take me there when I was a kid. I miss going there for chili dog and a milkshake. Luckily, I'm so glad Ted Peters is open after the hurricane. They had some damage from the storm. They're still there, but we're losing a few of these
old school
staples, and I hate to see it, but I also understand that that's how it works sometimes. And we still have Harvey's. Still have Harvey's on 4th Street.
Yes,
I think they just had their 40th anniversary. So that's hats off to them. That's crazy.
That's a long time to be in business, and that it's always fun to talk with those people and hear the things that they've gone through, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To maintain over years of trials and tribulations that they face.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I'm super excited about the growth of the city. Some people are, not so happy about it. We talk about that change. I mean, just high level, real quick. Like, where do you see the city going over the next 3 to 5 years?
Oof, that's a tough question. Well, I think I said last time I was on, I would much rather deal with growth issues than be dealing or working in a city that's dying and cannot attract people here. So I will take the problems we have all day long. I understand the frustrations that a lot of people have. It's gotten way more expensive, way quicker than I think a lot of people anticipated. I didn't even expect that. I think for those of us who grew up here, we were at a bit of a disadvantage because as we saw home prices go to a certain level, at least my thought, I won't speak for everyone, was, well, it's not going to stay here. It's got to come back down, and now it's gone like twice that. So I was very wrong in that regard. But people moving here from other places were saying, what a deal.
Right.
So I didn't see that coming as fast as it did. I probably should have. But I think sometimes you get tunnel vision with where you live and where you grew up. I'm excited for the future here. I think there's a lot of things we need to do to improve as a city. But I think there's enough people here who care.
Do you have one example that you could share? Oof. I know, tough on the side. You don't have to, but if there's something that's not too sticky.
Well, generally speaking, without ticking too many people off, I think we need to get back to the basics a little bit. I think we need to understand that health and safety, that our infrastructure, our roads, our drainage are very critical things that we as a city need to come together to work on and focus on and solve. I think it's easy to get distracted on a lot of fun things, which is great. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do some of these things, but I think at its core, when people live someplace, they want a city that is well maintained and is a safe place to be. I'm not saying we're unsafe right now, but I think changes are happening, and I think we've dropped the ball in a few areas, and we need to get back to the basics and
foundational items
of what city management should be about. I think we need to focus in on the budget a little more too. I think it's been very easy in a city that's growing to continue to spend money without too many questions asked, because we have more and more money coming in every year, right? Tax revenue's high, utility revenue's high. And I think it's easy to just continue increasing spending. And I think there just needs to be a little more focus on where those dollars are going.
Some efficiency.
Yeah, some efficiency. And oftentimes, like with businesses too, right? You kind of lose sight of efficiency when things are going well.
Of course. It's only when you have to tighten your belt that you...
Exactly. Yeah. And then all of a sudden when things aren't, you got to really dig in and figure it out. That being said, I think that overall our city is headed in a great direction. And I think we've had good leadership over the last 20 years to get us there. And I think we have a lot of people who live here with a very passionate, vested interest on how we do things and where we go. And what's great about that too is we don't need to depend upon the city, and I'm talking city government, to do everything for us. There are so many people here who have volunteered their time or started nonprofits or started businesses just to make this community better. And when everybody pitches in and works that way and goes down the path of something they're passionate about to make that happen, we are such a better place for it, without having to just wait for it to come top down. We can all step in and do different things and help.
We can make the change.
We can make the change. And but it's hard. I understand that. And it takes time. And, I was on the board at St. Pete College for 8 years. And that was a lot of work, a lot of time when I was trying to get a business off the ground. But I enjoyed it so much, and it was so fulfilling. And the mission statement of that college is so beautiful, and what it means to this community. I don't think a lot of people even understand how much St. Pete College does for Pinellas County. And so it was well worthwhile putting that time in to do that.
I'm glad you said that. We'll have to talk offline about that because I just had a few ideas. Yeah, well, Nathan, I can tell your passion. I mean, 43 years here, it shows, right? You're ingrained. You have a big heart. It's shown. Your intentionality is incredible, well spoken. You shared some things. I've learned a lot from you today, so I appreciate everything that you're doing for the community. You and your whole team over at Green Bench, and excited for the future to see what you guys do with St. Pete Athletic Club and all the other ventures that you guys are in. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.
Time.
Thank you. For the real fans that are listening, I always ask the guests, what's one word that they could comment below to let them know that they're still here?
Oh, man. One word.
One word.
How about passion?
Passion.
Yeah.
Nathan has it. Comment passion below if you're still with us. Share with a friend. Like, subscribe. Please do all the fun things. Go have a beer at Green Bench. It's great. Tie into their community events. Appreciate you all for being here. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. I'm going to say it again. And comment below. Passion, so we know we're still here. Thank you, everyone. See you on the next one.